The next big thing we're going to do in this course is to construct something called an API, or Application Programming Interface. You've seen this already. When you go into the documentation and you look up string, somebody's written a string class, and the documentation for that string class is present. What we are going to do in this class is we're going to build a facility for doing extended precision rational arithmetic. Its name is BigFraction. BigFraction will allow us to do things like compute the 5,000th harmonic number. What's that? The 5,000th harmonic number is the sum of the first 5,000 reciprocals. One thing we know about fractions is that when you start adding them, the numerators and denominators tend to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now we know that even the long type in Python is a 64-bit 2's complement notation integer. And if you tried to compute the 5,000th harmonic number using that, you would quickly find that type overflow, would result in you getting absurd answers or errors or exceptions. Believe me, it won't end well. However, if we think about a fraction, let's think about what it means to be a fraction. What do I need to know to be a fraction? What I need to know is my numerator and my denominator. And I'm going to store those two things as big integers. Then, what do I want to be able to do with big fractions? Well, Mrs. Wormwood says you need to be able to do fraction arithmetic. So we need to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And we also need to watch out, because end users are not always this is a general purpose data type, and it's designed for other people to program with. Well, sometimes though, other people are not so smart. Remember, the dumbest thing in the whole universe, the lowliest, most anencephalic, slime-dwelling creature is the end user of your brilliant code. So we need to also be careful to throw exceptions where errors can occur. For example, you don't want somebody to specify a zero denominator, a divide by zero. So we will take care of that situation by firing a speeding bullet at the beating heart of that user's program in the form of an exception. So our BigFraction class will be a general purpose class for performing manipulations on fractions, and we are able to do some pretty crazy calculations because the numerator and denominator are not going to overflow. One interesting thing we'll do with this, just sort of a toy thing, is at the end we'll take an old method for computing the square root of a number by iterations, and we'll feed in a big fraction and get rational approximations to things like the square root of 2 or the cube root of 5. And it's amazing how big those fractions, how big they get, and how fast they get big. So this is really going to put you in another realm. You're going to be in the realm of being the creator of something that is intended for client programmers to use. And you are going to create a full applications programming interface. The other thing you should note is that Java has something called JavaDoc. JavaDoc allows us to insert an HTML-like markup into our programs, and when we run JavaDoc, it generates an HTML page that looks like the ones that you see online. So this is going to be an interesting and complex experience. To go along with it, I will be assigning a project in which you should, in parallel, while I'm creating this applications programming interface, you will create an applications programming interface, and this will be up on the specs page. And as we go along, you want to be creating yours in parallel so that the ideas are reinforced. We'll be doing things like creating static constants, creating constructors, creating possibly some kind of static factory method that's kind of like big integer dot value of. We're going to create all those things and create a full-featured facility for writing code with fractions. You are going to write a full-featured facility for writing codes with some numeric type, which I will specify. It could be complex numbers, it might be quaternions, it may be something involving modular arithmetic. I've yet to make that decision, but this will be an interesting experience for you as a programmer and an important part of your development, because really you're going to see the value of good documentation here. You want somebody to be able to program with your class by looking at just your Java doc output and by using your .class file. That's all they're going to need for them to be able to program in your new type. As you will see, people will be able to program in the BigFraction type in the same sort of way. Chapter 4 of the book contains the BigFraction case study. Every time I cover it in class, I do it a little differently. So we'll see how that all works out. But welcome to Chapter 4.